Thank you, Christina McKelvie. Then closing speeches.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. The poet and domestic abuse survivor Christina Martin wrote this: "You can't keep her in a cage, clip her wings and tell her lies, say that fragile birds will never meant to fly. Watch her live behind a rusty door, latched tight, her spirit slipping away so you can keep her in sight. Beautiful creatures cannot be confined, her wings will grow, she'll find the sky." I'll talk about that in a wee minute, Presiding Officer. But around 1 in 3 women and a growing number of men are become victims of domestic abuse. And we would like to think that we find this behaviour completely and utterly appalling and disgusting, which we do, but some are still too inclined to brush it under the carpet. But we know it's still happening. The evidence tells us that. We are better informed by statistics, but too many victims are still fearful of seeking redress. Perhaps some people, particularly, though not exclusively, the abusers, have thought, oh well, you'll get over it. You'll get over the broken bones, the bruises, the smashed teeth, your life goes on. But we know through the evidence from the committee and from other avenues that that is certainly not the case for many victims. The question is, Presiding Officer, are we doing enough? We need to wipe out home-based domestic violence and make it completely unacceptable, that culture change that my colleague spoke about. With the right tools in place, Scotland can become an exemplar and really chip away at an old, outdated notion of it's none of my business, pal mentality. That can be through grassroots community work. We've heard of many of the organisations. I'd like to thank them for all of their help and support for the work that I do in co-chairing the cross-party group with my colleague Claire Baker. We have seen some improvements. We've seen, in many cases, huge improvements through locally led groups, and some of the ones that I work with, South Lanarkshire Women's Aid, Lanarkshire Rape Crisis, and the brilliant work of the Stamp Project doing work in schools. Presiding Officer, this bill tackles one of my biggest concerns. That is coercive control, in that victims who are not aware of being isolated from friends or family, having access to money and bank accounts restricted, or having personal medical conditions revealed, is domestic abuse, and it needs to be a criminal offence. This decimates human lives. Using gestures and eye contact to warn or control another's behaviour can be undetectable to most of us, but devastating to the person who is the target of that type of coercive control. The Justice Committee saw so much compelling and persuasive evidence of psychological abuse to see it as a real and pernicious issue, the effect of which can be every bit as harmful as any violent abuse. Presiding Officer, it is important to add here that an increasing number of victims are young men and women in the LGBTI community. Having a same-sex partner doesn't protect you from abuse. They find themselves being bullied, humiliated, laughed at or rejected with psychological or coercive behaviours and, of course, the physical violence that comes with that. We have to be mindful that that's what's happening now. And in its submission to the Scottish Women's Aid welcomed the principles behind the legislation and said, and I quote, "The new law offers a policy sea change by focusing our criminal justice response on the actions of the perpetrator rather than the circumstances of the victim. And by doing so, it will enable better understanding of domestic abuse and its impact on women, children and young people in our communities, institution and our country." I agree with them. But our present law leaves a gap that this bill, I hope, will close. It will give better protection to victims seeking redress for acts that will be criminal in law. At the moment, if you want to take a case, you really have to do so under a claim that your physical integrity has been attacked or threatening behaviour has caused you fear and alarm. Fundamentally, this bill carefully defines the offence of engaging in an abusive course of conduct against a partner or ex-partner, enhances the power of the police and improves protection for the victim. And that's notwithstanding some of the asks that people have asked for today. Here's my ask, Presiding Officer, in conclusion. I would ask the Scottish Government to strengthen the bill when it comes to the impact on children. I know Scottish Women's Aid have some proposals on these issues, and I would also welcome the Scottish Government confirmation of the review of the Children Scotland Act 1995 will include consideration of this, and I would reiterate Kezia Dugdale's call for similar mindfulness. I would also ask the Scottish Government to be mindful in its review of short-term sentencing during the process of the bill, and I'm sure that many organisations will tell you why they have concerns about that. In this bill, we have an opportunity, presiding officer, to break the locks of that cage I spoke about at the beginning. And we begin with this contribution.
Please conclude.
Why would anyone stand in the way of those essential
Thank you.
principles? I don't.
Thank you.